My career really started when I quit and dropped out after first year engineering. Spent a couple more months after that actually working at an air conditioning repair shop. The hardest thing at that point was to go and ask dad for some money. Oh my god, that was tough. So I did all of this just so that I didn't have to have that uncomfortable conversation. Rajasthan was actually a center of a lot of these MLM schemes back then. We said, you know what, these guys, they need software, man. You know, we made it and we built an ERP and it was phenomenal. Except fucking scammers don't pay their bills. So that shut down in 6 months. Now, mind you, I am 30 at this point in time. I have never had a job all this while, ever. And I happened to share a ride with this person from Bhilwara to Jaipur. This person in middle of it said, you know what, you should be a product manager. I had a Nokia E71. I looked up what a product manager does and bullshitted my way into telling this guy, yeah, that sounds like my strength. 4 days from then, I was a product manager in Nokia. It was phenomenal. I used to trek a lot. Met Anand Jain at a trek. He said, yeah, you should come work for us. On a notice of 2 days, I just showed up. And that's how I ended up at CleverTap. You know, sales really begins. Where, look, we're not going to wait for customers to come to us. We're going to go to them. If your job is to work with people, shave or at least trim your fucking beard. And that tells you that I spent some time putting myself together just so that I can be in your presence without offending.
All right, folks, before we get into the episode, it would mean the world to me if you can just press that like button in the video, and if you can just comment sales, because that's what we are mostly going to discuss in this video. So if you can just comment sales, that would mean the world to me. And of course, while you're at it, subscribe if you haven't, and share the video with like your best friend, and enjoy the video. Okay, so we have Kuldeep, aka KD, with us. Is he KD because Kuldeep or Kuldeep Dhankar? I don't know. But
That's a good question.
yeah,
No,
he's just KD for
I was
us.
thinking about that yesterday myself.
And what was the outcome of your meditation?
No, I don't know. I said I like it when people call me Katie. Very specific.
Okay.
KD.
That's all.
KD with us is here from Jhajjar, I believe.
Well, I did spend 7 years there, but yes.
Only 7? I thought you spent your whole life, childhood
No,
there.
I live in New Bombay. A lot of people can't differentiate between Belapur and Jhajjar anyways. So there is that.
I mean, I've not been to either, so
Bro, you should be to New Bombay is good. Like Navi Mumbai is good. You should
you
go
think
to,
I will cross the whatever?
for the airport now. You will.
That's all right.
I will.
9 more days to go until we have an airport. So yeah.
KD has already invested in the real estate around the airport, so he's like super
I
invested.
waited far too long for this airport.
So KD here with us, he is the co-founder of Last9, which is a developer tool for performance monitoring for all your big ass applications.
We're also trying to build a cursor for ops. So, there you have that.
अभी भी फंडिंग नहीं मिली नेक्स्ट राउंड तो फिर कैसे मिलेगी? But yeah, before we get into that, like KD, I wanted to understand, because I've seen like your journey, your career journey, your life journey has been like the one of the most unique I've come across in my life. Could you just take us through that?
Once Katie got mad because I didn't realize he had also been a software engineer. I was like, "You've not been technical," and I'm like, and then he was like, "I have." I was like, "Oh." So, because I think a lot of us know Kuldeep for all the work he does around talking about sales and selling, and I think you are very well known for your time at CleverTap and Microsoft and Nokia before that. But we'd love to know how you got started and how you are here today.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's been a hell of a career journey for sure. But I think it's only been me trying to avoid work across a few decades, honestly, right? To me, my career really started when I quit and dropped out after first year engineering because that's a long time ago. We used to have a different sets of heroes back then. I don't know if you guys have heard of Jerry Yang, who's the founder of Yahoo.
Yeah.
I quit college after first year. Started a website. I used to call it IamAmodel.com. That was fun.
What kind of models are we talking about?
Yeah, because model now means something very else, very, very different.
Yeah, I know. We've come a full circle, right? Back then, in Bombay, you used to have these modeling agencies that would require models to drop by their, one face photograph of a body shot.
Yeah.
And photographers used to rip these people up, and most of them were like, barely barely fed college students anyways. So I said, hey, you know what? I'm gonna give you like Anmol.imamodel.com. You
Oh.
have your portfolio hosted there, and I mean, it was amazing, right? Because all you needed to do was have an HTML website and just a URL, and there was no authentication, anything of that sort. We just literally had an HTML page with a couple of embedded photographs. You could just, if you knew somebody's name and a URL, you could just go through all of them. But it was great. It took a couple of days to set up, and you could go live. I mean, I would say it actually took a little bit more effort than a typical Bangalore AI startup takes now, right? Which is a poorly written prompt most of the times. But yeah, that lasted 6 months, which is again, I'll remind you, longer than a typical Bangalore startup now. But yeah,
And bootstrapped, I
no,
assume. You didn't even need to raise $3 million.
my friend, this was at a time where I don't think there was a single VC.
That's not true. ICICI Ventures existed in India back then.
you know, First time I entered ICICI building was 2003, and the only reason I went there because they had a waterfall in their lobby. You can see that, right? So I'm just saying, sure, something like that existed. I didn't know about it.
Yeah.
I was just a kid trying to get something done. But that was SimonModel.com, 6 months. That died fairly quickly, though. Just
When
before.
was this?
This was 1998, man. I know.
Wow.
I know.
Anmol was 1 year old.
No, two.
Two, sorry.
Thank you for reminding me. Yeah. Right. So yeah, and that didn't work out. So I somehow managed to go back to engineering, and then again promptly dropped out after second year.
So I mean, are you actually like unenrolling and enrolling back, or is this like, oh, I'm dropping out
Bombay
for the
University
summer and
was
then
very kind. I mean, you
actually
could just
can?
simply walk away, and it's all right. As long as you paid the fees, nobody gave a damn, right? So you could just go back. I did that. Did that. I did another startup, which was Velocity. We call it back then. We call it Velocity Inc. Right? Because all of us wanted a US visa, and the great companies were being in the US. By now, I had finished my second year, and my new insight was that a lot of these, and especially because you'll probably resonate with this, Shobhit. Rajasthan was actually a center of a lot of these MLM schemes back then, multi-level marketers. And we said, you know what, these guys, they need software, man. They need software, right? And these people are very encouraging, and they're like, haha, software banaiye, and we made it, and we built an ERP, and it was phenomenal, right? Except fucking scammers don't pay their bills, so that shut down in 6 months. Right? I did not realize that people will actually just refuse to pay their bills. That ended up
Yeah.
that ended in a hurry. This time it was
Was that Bhilwara?
yeah. Well, yes, that was the first time in my life I went to Bhilwara. Actually, the first time I went to
Yeah.
Udaipur, but didn't stop. Just drove on to Bhilwara. That was nice. But spent a couple more months after that actually working at an air conditioning repair shop. And I know we have a lot of time, so I can actually tell this story because that was humbling, which reminded me that if you don't win, right, the low can be very low in this society, right? Fixing air conditioners is not a fun job, but I figured out. I learned how to. I said, it's easier to sell air conditioners on rent. I just rented out. I bought old air conditioners, fixed them up, rented them out to these construction sites, and so on and so forth. That was a nice business. You could say I learned a lot about annuity business and recurring revenue model back then because it was nice, right? You could take crap, package it up nicely, sell it for an annuity to anybody, and the value proposition had to be lower. I just described AI business model to you guys.
Yeah.
You can thank me. You can thank me later. I learned this all the way back in 2001.
Yeah. Basically, you were the landlord of air
You could
conditioners.
say that. Right? No, so quit, went back, finished third year. By this time, most of my friends had actually graduated. So college was a lonely, bloody place. I actually didn't even bother, trying to apply myself for the fourth year. I just quit. This was also a very interesting time. So this was the heyday of Infosys and Wipro hiring, right? There were if you could just pass a single entrance Java entrance exam, right? And Java had just been introduced, by the way. This was all, servlets and applets, and it was amazing time. GUI was just a very new thing, and these were like halcyon days. This was almost pre-internet, right? Orkut dominated, and Facebook was just a little thing, and it was just amazing days. The primary way people accessed the internet was actually cyber cafes, and GPRS wasn't a thing. So, again, I'm talking about a really long term. So actually, it wasn't that long ago, but it was really long ago. Barely finished my, took my exams, came back to Bombay. I was studying in this place near Ratnagiri. Yeah, but I was determined to do one thing, which is no matter what happens, I'm not going to go work for Wipro, Infosys, and the likes. And that's, I think, of all the high impact decisions I made in my life, I think that was the one because, oh God.
Was that kind of a controversial thing back then? Like I don't think there's as like there seems to be more stigma associated with those companies now, but at that point, I assume it was
Oh,
still
it was amazing. Right?
sort of
The salaries these people are paying, by the way, it's pretty much the same as it's now.
yeah,
But
yeah,
back then, that was like you could buy a car and a half as a person, right?
yeah.
It was phenomenal, right? I mean, if you go to Pune and if you go to see Hinjabli, right, Infosys had a campus there, and some of the best places to work with these companies. It's just that something just didn't appeal about these mega corporations, thousands of people, and how I was keeping, as you can imagine, right? I wasn't getting along very well with my father because just all this going to college, coming back, what the hell is happening?
Of course.
Yeah. So my way I used to make money was I used to tutor people in Java so that they could pass these exams. And by the time I was done, like, if this is all it takes, right? A bit of a high opinion of myself, I'm saying all it takes, for whatever reasons, right? It just never appealed to me. Didn't want to do it. I didn't like Java as much because I knew Pascal and C, and I was a bit of an ass about the whole thing, as you probably have experienced in your life a few times.
So this is just like Shobhit with
So,
Ruby.
yeah, yeah. It was a bit worse because we were right. The Ruby guys are not. But that's okay. We'll fight another day. Well,
Sure.
around 2003 it was very clear that it's going to be very difficult staying at home. So because dad wasn't exactly, you show up and I'll be on the sofa and I'll be like only one of us can be in the house at one point in time. So I actually did a few jobs, did a cable internet business where I was just stringing wires, and DSL was the big technology back then.
That's also subscriptions, actually.
Yeah, well, I mean, I wasn't doing the subscriptions. I was actually doing more the stringing wires between buildings and trying to figure things out.
Oh,
I
acha.
built a hardware business. Internet had now just started to become a thing, and I built a small business called Hardware City, which was selling home theater PCs, and did that, and did a bunch of stuff. Then I started a company called D Edge, which was a very small company that used to do data entry, and that's how I got my. And back then, these the Indian ad agencies. They used to run these massive campaigns. ICICI was running a campaign called Member Get Member, where you could just enter five name, address and name and phone number of five people you knew, and you would be entered into a lucky draw, and you'll be sent to Malaysia for a holiday. Yeah, I know, yeah, Malaysia, right? It was a very different time, but that actually allowed me to exercise some of my ability to write software, be more efficient with data entry. I was getting paid 35 paisa per form, but I still managed to make enough money with that to continue in that business for a while. From there, I picked on this. I don't know if you heard of this open source PBX called Asterisk PBX. Did some dialer writing in PBXs, and call centers were a big deal. So, I wanted to sell call center dialers, couldn't do that. Nobody was going to buy from someone like me. But what I managed to do was the demonstration call center I set up. Actually, a couple of guys said, we can actually sell and generate some leads. So my first introduction to the power of selling really was to sell mortgage leads or generate mortgage leads for realtors in the US. We would sit in the night, dial out to the US. I have these people, we hire these people from these call centers. Accent training was a very big scale back then, right? So you go to Wipro call center, hire a few good guys, write a script, get them to dial, bother people just before their dinner, right? These people they get screamed at, but every lead that we generated paid $70.
I've heard of similar voice AI companies in the last like 6 8 months where it's
But we
just
were voice AI too, right?
agents. Yeah,
AI
yeah,
is
yeah,
for
yeah,
anonymous Indians, right? Nobody cared
yeah,
who
yeah.
we were, right? Like I could literally, so I'd get on a call, I'll talk to anybody or exchange who was selling leads. I'd negotiate a rate with them, and then we would get a list and start dialing out on that list, and we would generate. That's how I learned how to pronounce each American state properly, right? I mean, this was
Which one was the hardest?
well, they were all hard, man. Like, you have
No, we're talking about like Alabama, Missouri.
I never understood Utah. Or Iowa. This is so confusing, right? But But that's the English is actually not my first language. I didn't learn English till fourth standard, so it was around the time I was really struggling. Almost all my English was read, not spoken. So anyway, it was difficult, but it was fun in the sense that I didn't need that much money, and decent enough was coming in that we could just keep going, right? It was basically make ends meet. Not as a family. Father was well off, right? It was mostly me saying that I didn't need, like, the hardest thing at that point was to go and ask dad for some money. Oh my God, that was tough. So I did all of this just so that I didn't have to have that uncomfortable conversation. But that worked out decently well because another interesting thing about having a calling infrastructure is that India didn't have much calling infrastructure, right? So while we were doing all these deals and waking up in the nights, right, call center was empty in the day. So we could run a bunch of other small businesses. We could do data entry. We could do call center dialing and stuff like this. So kept humming along, kept making ends meet. Around this time, I got married, right? I met my wife in college. I was getting to that place. I think I was 26. Got married, and now I needed a little bit more money, and I basically never had money. It was bad. So I started consulting alongside because the one thing I could do very well was write long ass studies, articles, right? And I used to read a lot. So this is around the time when we were really governed well between the Vajpayee government and the Manmohan Singh government, right? Things were really, and India was exploding. Everything was exploding, right? I mean, great companies that you hear of were really small companies. People like Sona Steering and Microsoft was shutting shop, and Google was here. So there was this project called Project Vikas, which was basically introducing ICT, information and communication technologies, into manufacturing. So I spent a lot of time going out and visiting these really small industrial clusters. Ludhiana for knitting, and Agra for shoes, and Chennai for shoes, and Chennai for auto, and Pune for auto. So there were these clusters, and we would go in and say, "Hey, this is what the current state of technology is. This is what is needed." And then one of the sponsors of this was Microsoft, which said, "Hey, you know what? Manufacturing needs ERP. We have ERP. This is Navision." This was the pre-cloud era, right? So Salesforce wasn't a thing yet. ERPs were the most complex, complicated pieces of software that you bought. This gave me a great perspective on the Indian market, and I spent a lot of time on trains in small towns and really hotels, right? I would not recommend Kanpur in the early part of the century. God, that was a bad, nasty city. I think it still is nasty, but back then.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, like UP is not somewhere I would recommend a lot of people spend time in.
Yeah, well, but Kanpur was interesting because there was a time that India was top in so many things, right? We were the largest exporter of blue leather in the world. Uh, Footwear export was a 11,000 crores industry. So I got to visit these mega, mega, mega shoes factories in Chennai. Chennai still dominates in leather, by the way. So does Agra and Kanpur. And Kanpur is still the only place in the world where you can actually get a horse saddle made properly now. So I learned a lot about. So I've always this actually gave me a fantastic appreciation for how deep, like most people who talk to India, they've never really been outside of a few large cities for work, right? Like a lot of people, people have never gone beyond Noida or Gurgaon, right? I actually got to visit and experience, right? And Shobhit, I toured ends of Rajasthan, right? Bhilwara, for doing almost all the polyester in the country actually comes from that one little town, right? Because it just happens to be so dry. I mean, you land in Udaipur in May, right? There's a board that's saying that it's not recommended that you travel to the state of Rajasthan during the month of June. I'm like, wow,
Yeah.
hell of a welcome, right? And this is not the new airport. Shobit, the older one was basically a shed, right? Cars had to take a break. It's a 2.5 drive from Udaipur to Bhilwara. So again, it was fascinating. Right? To me, India was always this massive country, and there's obviously a lot of disparity. And the moment you stepped out of Bombay, things become weird. But everything was changing very, very rapidly. It was around 2009 that I actually correlated with the arrival of our first child. I really realized that, hey, this is not going to work out. By the way, between all of this, the call center died because Lehman Brothers died, so the whole mortgage market collapsed. Uh, so when
Wow.
Oh,
Yeah, right. So
wow.
whenever I was see that movie, so I was poor, but then I got poorer. Right. All
Yeah,
this time, thankfully, my partner, she had a decent job, and we could make ends
yeah,
meet. But this was the last decade in many ways. But I was really grinding it out. It was phenomenal. Uh, you don't feel it when you're in the shit, right? But then you're learning a lot. And I think I learned a lot in that decade about, the depth of the Indian market, about people willingness to pay, about how to go sit and deal with a person in Ahmedabad. I did some work with the pharmaceutical. This is around the time when pharmaceutical manufacturing was moving to Himachal Pradesh and Baddi from Ahmedabad, right? So there's India's generics is very, very big business. We export almost all the medicine to Africa. So I got a lot of perspective, pharma, leather, clothing, and it's great because these are things that we are actually pretty good at, right? I mean, a lot of people say India is software, but India's great at textiles. India's great at leather. India's phenomenal at pharma, right? We lead the world in generics production, right? Our medicines are inexpensive, right? You'll see that with Ozempic going off patent in a week, couple of weeks actually, right? And we will change the human with the human body forever. So more on that later. But the point was, it's around 2009. This is where I think I once saw a video in 2015, 2016 where somebody talked about, or was it 18? I don't know. I could be wrong, but about surface increasing the surface area of luck. I think some YC partner this, and it brought home to me what had happened to me because I needed a job mostly because I wanted to make sure that we didn't have to go to one of those dimly lit, bad, maternity clinics. I wanted to be in a decent hospital. Those things were expensive, and I remember it was so expensive. I said, you know what, this is not going to work out. Right, time to maybe look for a job. Now, mind you, I am 30 at this point in time. I have never had a job all this while ever. So much so that my bank account was at a cooperative bank, and this was not banks that have online banking. This is where you have a passbook and a check. So this was a bit odd, but the very first person that I spoke to, and I happened to share a ride with this person from Bhilwara to Jaipur, and that's a longer ride than Udaipur. And this person in middle of it said, you know what, you should be a product manager, right? And I swear to God, I kid you not, right? I had a Nokia E71 phone. I looked up Google search on what a product manager does and bullshitted my way into telling this guy, yeah, that sounds like my strength.
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty much the
That's
job.
pretty much the joke. Yeah. So 4 days from then, I was a product manager at Nokia. It was phenomenal. I was building a software called Nokia Tej, which was actually helping beat salespeople collect orders from this thing. I learned a lot about retail and distribution in India. We sold to companies like HUL and Procter and Gamble and Kevin Care, which by the way built the sachet model in India. It was fascinating. Nokia was such an amazing company. Timing wasn't perfect because it was 2009, and the iPhone wasn't even a thing, man. The iPhone just barely had gotten an app store, and apps were not a big deal. Well, by 2013, that was not the problem. By 2013, I'd moved into a different team. Nokia had started to bleed people. I joined the team that did apps for Movie
Symbian?
Store, Symbian, and S40.
Okay. Oh
That's how
wow.
I met most of the people that I know. So, Flipkart's first app was
Yeah.
actually on the
Yeah.
Windows Phone, right? And my team helped and worked with
Uh,
them deliver that, right? Flipkart Books was a thing, by the way. It was only on Windows Phone for a while, and we helped deliver that. Worked with some people, who are still in the industry, people like Amar Nagaram, right? To collaborate with him almost daily with the Mintra app. It was amazing. 2014, I joined Microsoft, which was not a company I enjoyed because mobile and cloud were a very different thing. It was very clear that Satya was going to take the company somewhere else. Steve Ballmer had just been replaced by Satya. It wasn't going to work. I used to trek a lot. Met Anand Jain at a trek. He said, yeah, you should come work for us. On a notice of 2 days, I just showed up because by this time I'd bought a house. The financial situation had stabilized. Nokia paid well. Microsoft even better. So I said, okay, fine. I have nothing else to do, and I don't want to do a job anymore. And that's how I ended up at CleverTap, with no offer letter, no job role, nothing. It was phenomenal. I was number 10. All the people in the room were engineers, and I asked Anand. Remember asking Anand, "Hey, what do I do?" He said, "Why don't you start by writing emails, support emails?" And I was like, "Fine." At this point in time, I would do anything. I just wanted to be done and not walk into, like, I have this thing, right? I never want to carry those ID cards. These people carry those ID cards that you tap in and out. Like, God, that felt like I was a fucking, like, branded goat or something. It was bad.
but at Nokia, was that not the case? Or like, how was the experience of like having always like built stuff for yourself and then jumping into like Indian
Smokey was pretty
corporate
entrepreneurial, right? We
companies?
were part of we were
Okay.
building, it was a small team. It was fascinating. we were still building a software, right? Nokia wanted to get into services, so I was building a SaaS at Nokia, and it scaled really well. I mean, Nokia Tej did some pretty strong numbers. Everything I know about Indian SaaS, I learned in 2011 and 10, right?
Are you allowed to share how what revenue?
I mean, decent. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what the line on that is, right? Because
Okay.
yeah, we were about 5,000 users at one point in time. Each of these people were paying anywhere between 200 to 700 rupees a month. Was phone revenue on the side, so it was fascinating. We were growing. Nokia had a lot of services. Nokia also did the first wallet in the country, right? Nokia Money, as before Paytm, and Nokia also did this service called Nokia Life, which was also like you could get price of your grains and from Mandi Bhav and whatnot, right? So it was a fascinating services ecosystem. Learned a lot about the depth of India. Again, Nokia was a company who was completely and fully committed to India as a market.
Yeah, yeah,
Microsoft.
yeah.
So again, with that indoctrination coming to CleverTap, I think it was a year before I decided that, hey, you know what, I can't just shut up in a room. Just I'd much rather sell, because CleverTap had a great advantage, and I just became the sales guy because I just started going and talking to customers. We started closing accounts, and then look back, and that lasted till 2021. And that's something, it had been a long journey. COVID broke us. It broke me. Very, very long. Uh,
I think you saw Clubhouse and you were like, okay, I'm done working.
I think that's how Shobhit, is that how we also met? I can't
I mean,
recall now.
we met because we had that famous bet, but
Oh, that.
we became friends on Clubhouse.
yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, I quit 2021. I quit, went back, took a year off, then met Nishant, who was building Last9. And, I have this theory about SaaS. There are only three SaaS plays, not very different from AI, right? That you can make a data engine, you can make a workflow engine, or you can do a services business. And I hate services businesses because they tend to be, first ones to become, their margin gets competed away. They have a lasting ability, but in services business, you deal with a lot of human misery, right? And that's essentially what you deal with, right? Infosys and Wipro are great examples. Again, I think they're great companies. I hold shares, but God, I don't think anything good ever came out of those places, right? I think we set us back 20 years. Come at me. I'm on Twitter. You can pick a fight for this. But yeah, data engines are phenomenal. CleverTap was and is a data engine business. It's held on to its market share. Some of the largest companies in the country work with CleverTap, and I was instrumental in that. And effectively, Nishant was essentially focused on building a layer of intelligence about data or observability data, and that's what we started with. We ended up building a data engine and unifying observability, and we are on a mission to say that, hey, very clear, the world is going to segment very clearly into data and intelligence, right? It's already segmenting. Workflows are gone, workflows are done, and if they're not done today, they will be done tomorrow or day after, right? But no one's doubting that this will be anything, that the software won't be autonomous, or workflows will still exist, or dynamic UI won't exist, right? It doesn't exist today, but by the time this decade is done, and I've lived through times of such technological change. I got my first online banking password in 2009. Unfortunately, it was HDFC, right? Which a decision I still regret to this day, right? Do not get HDFC.
HDFC is great. What are you talking about? I love HDFC.
Correct, Anmol. That's good bait, good rage bait, but I won't rage on it today, right? I wish upon that my worst enemies.
To HDFC, Zeta powers all their tech now. I think it's not terrible
I
anymore.
am not taking that bait. Oh, I have nothing to say again for or against Zeta. But the point is, look, we're clearly moving on that curve, and that's what I'm building. I'm building unified observability software that delivers reliability at scale, and and what I do now is I sell, because apparently all I've been doing all my life has been selling.
But I guess, how was it? Like, I mean, CleverTap was probably the first time you were selling to folks outside of India, because, or maybe not. I guess
We were.
mortgages you were
CleverTap did
selling,
have
like,
global customers. Right? We had
yeah,
Southeast Asian
yeah.
customers. We had Middle Eastern customers. We had customers very, very far east. Like, if you go all the way to Philippines, we had customers in the Philippines. We had customers in the US. That was there. It's just that my own view was, one, everybody's got to have an edge, right? The founders are focused on making CleverTap win in the US. Where I say, hey, you know what? I can deal with this market fairly well. You don't have to worry about it. I can generate a lot of revenue very cheap. The one reason to sell in India remains that you have a deep enough market for most verticals, and you can acquire those customers very cheaply, because you only got to sell effectively in three cities, right? I mean, the NCR, the MMR, which is Mumbai Metropolitan Region, and Bangalore. Beyond this, Chennai isn't
Okay.
that deeper market. Chennai doesn't buy crap, so don't bother selling in Chennai. But you have these three markets. They are all easily connected. Here's the best part, right? Dubai is now effectively a suburb of Bombay, right? You can just fly in, and Singapore isn't that far either. So you can actually, and Singapore is one of the largest buying centers in Southeast Asia, even though Jakarta and Kuala Lumpur come close. But Dubai is pretty much where everything is sold, right? So now you have five very, very large cities who are all within 2 to 3 hours flying distance from a base, where collectively you're looking at 10 to 15,000 companies that have reasonable spending power. Now, I'm not saying that's taking you to $1 billion in revenue. It won't,
Yeah,
most
yeah,
likely, right? But that's a great way to start because most of these people already know you. You know them. I still tell people that if I give you $1 million for a marketing team in India, right, they couldn't spend it all. Like they couldn't spend it all, right? They'll have to burn it, and even then, it'll take a long time to burn $1,000 in, $1 billion in rupees. I mean, if you took the smallest note and you put them in crores, right, you would actually generate a lot of calorific value out of just burning, as in literally combustion of, 8 9 crores is it now, uh, in a million.
yeah, yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Right? So again, it's a low CAC market, and sure, it's probably not fashionable to say that are you profitable, do you have margin? But look, margin's everything. Right? In the end, longevity comes from margin. You can acquire customers, but after a while, and we finally finished a cycle, right? We're going through this IPO window, and a lot of people are IPOing, and a lot of SaaS companies are going to start IPOing. And you'll see that profit matters in the end. In the end, it matters that you're able to generate value, are able to have a sustainable advantage. So yeah, I'm deeply biased to selling software to India. You could say that that's I know that a lot, but honestly, I've not found selling software outside India to be that much different. Standard selling models apply. It's just very, very expensive to get attention, right, and have a people and have an operation, right. A lot of people realize that the software engineering arbitrage may be on, but every other arbitrage exists. You're going to hire a salesperson on the East Coast, a person going to sit out in New York. You're going to have an on target earning of 250, 300, right? And it's probably not going to be the best. So you're going to have to compete for the very best they're going to bring in network. So it's expensive. It's expensive. And software, in the end, selling SaaS really does come out with the yield that you generate. Now, you can do that unprofitably for a long time. Right? My famous example is Freshworks, right? They're the greatest case study of a company that went IPO out of India and whatnot, right? When they built out of India, Indian founder, but they're effectively an American company. It's a great case study of what not to do, right? I mean, if you look at the numbers, if you're at 700, 800 million in ARR and they spend 65 somewhere in that region percentage of their operating income just on sales and marketing, and they lose money even today, and there's no way they recover that CAC. I mean, their CAC payback is crazy, right? Founders quit because once a founder leaves the company, it's pretty much done. uh,
Yeah, yeah.
Especially if
But I guess at least a lot of the chatter around fresh work that I hear is that, oh, they should have just gone public in India. Are people just saying that because they're not actually looking at the fundamentals of the business and that would also not do as well in India? Or
I mean, okay, I think Freshworks going public in India probably would not have happened, right? Again, I don't know.
I mean, like if with all their capital base being in the US, I don't think anyone in
Yeah,
the
plus
US would
the
have gone
customers
there.
were in the US. I mean, they did have
Yeah,
reasonable customers in India, right? But they were never
yeah,
focused in
yeah,
India, right? Freshworks was always about their whole rhetoric was make in India, sell in America, and so on and so forth. I think that look, Freshworks was never a company. They never claimed it to be innovative. They basically said that we're going to do everything that our competition does. That playbook, that playbook is they proved that playbook doesn't really work. They have a lot of revenue, but they generate almost no value from that. Late stage software, they try to pivot to AI, but they have thousands and thousands of people in the company, uh, right? And again, look, it's made a lot of people very rich. Don't get me wrong; it's not like I hate them. I'm just simply saying that what is the playbook that I run, and to me, that playbook that a lot of people sell and sling, I think, right, doesn't really work. Which is why the standard advice is that you raise your seed in India or Bangalore, then get an O1 and sit out of SF. Now that's seed arbitrage, right?
I think that's also disappearing
That's also
because I like if you can raise from the best US VCs from day one, you would rather go to that.
exactly right.
Yeah.
So my point is that
Yeah.
arbitrage is gone, but one arbitrage
Yeah.
still remains. I can get 6 to 7x on my investment in sales in India. I can barely get two in the US.
Okay, so if you are so confident about that, now assume I am a developer. Okay, assume kya, I am a developer, but
I'll assume many things. Haven't seen much.
okay.
Haven't seen much work out of you lately, but that's all right. Go on, go on.
So I mean, I'm a developer. I built a new product. Okay, now what is my next step to get my first customer, then my next 10 customers?
That's an easy answer, not an answer you come to me for, right? You're a
Okay,
developer, and if people can just find you and sign up on your website, that's the easiest way, right? Bringing someone like me on board, right? I mean, so there are two ways of selling, right? Either the product sells itself, or you need a person to explain something. Now that depends on. There's a theory, right? The more complicated, the number of people that you can address as a group, right? You got to make your message simpler and simpler and simpler. PLG can only be, PLG only works when you make it ultra simple. AI girlfriend slash chat GPT is a simple enough message that probably makes more revenue than many SaaS companies do in India, right? That message resonates, right? We all know that that's probably one of the main use cases that a lot of people do. I'm not judging them. I'm just simply saying it's a simple message, right? It may not be entirely true, or I'm sure people use that and they do other things. I mean, I saw an ad lately, I think a video ad on chat GPT where there's this girl who's practicing her English just before an interview. Phenomenal use case, right? I mean, but a point is you got to have a simple core message or core value proposition that resonates. But not all software is simple, and when you have something very complex and complicated, which by the way, not necessarily a product failure. Sometimes your products are complicated, right? Then you bring in a salesperson, or you be the salesperson. First 10 customers, as a matter of fact, your first 50 customers, you should be, as a founder, should be going out and selling it yourself, right? I'll leave PLG aside because that's straightforward. You people
yep.
try the open source model. Some people say, just sign up. If you're an AI, you can just simply say, we are a new AI for XYZ, and people will sign up and then churn after 2 months.
Cursor for X.
Yeah, it's very important that in those 2 months when a lot of people are signing up for your product, you claim that you have reached $15 million, 6 7 perception.
And
That's
raise
great.
and raise
Yeah,
After
and
that,
raise.
yeah.
after
Multiply
that,
of
you're
biggest day by 365.
because after that you'll find on Twitter that the partner for that fund is going on and saying that we're not seeing PMF in AI companies. Right? That's an inside joke, folks, and a subtweet. Go figure that out. But my point is, this
I
happens.
I don't
I
think that
just
was that hard to figure that out, Kuldeep.
I I just saw that today. I just
Yeah,
saw
yeah. So
that
that
today.
that happens, right? This will happen. I mean, a lot of people are gonna figure out, hey, shit, hey, we may be getting ripped off, right? But hey, you know what? By the way,
Yeah.
I feel really bad for some of these investors because the only logical move left in this market is the only thing you can do is participate. You can't have airs about it, right? You gotta participate. The guy saying, you know what, I am 15 minutes AR. You're like, dude, you're not. I am, and the other guy believes me, so you gotta believe me too. So you have to participate for the off chance and power law and whatnot. I'm not gonna.
Yeah, but I mean, because the off chance of you missing out is then that's the next $100 billion company, and then you look like a schmuck if you missed out.
Yeah, it's just that you know I have this one thing that the next $100 billion company is probably not gonna come out of Bangalore, Gurgaon, and it's not gonna look like a facsimile copy of an American company that tried the same thing. And I think a lot of misery or a lot of inflation could be avoided if we just hearken that, right? We still have that same mindset that we could do something that an American company did. We could do that in India for cheaper. It just doesn't work anymore. The market effects, and so on and so forth, doesn't pan out. But even pausing that for a minute and going back to what do you do to get a few customers is very straightforward. Sales is actually very very simple, right? It's going on and articulating your core value proposition, right, and negotiating the exchange of value. Easiest and simplest. People can just show up to a website. They say, hey, you know what? Yes, this is what I want to do. Do I want to vibe code, right? Before that word, do I want to create an application by writing simple prompts? And you can sign up and you get a free trial, and you're on Replit and say, hey, you know what, this has a reasonable thing. There's some wow, and after a while say, hey, you ran out of credits, just pay $25, and that's not a lot of money to pay. You pay, and
Yeah.
then on and off, on and on you go, right?
Mhm.
But say you want to make the same thing for an enterprise. Now there it's not going to be straightforward, because now instead of a person, you're being bought by a committee or a sort of group of people. So you got to understand hierarchy, who does what, right? I mean, the VP of engineering might be the only person who has a budget to make the purchase, but they might not be using it. So do you try strategies like get somebody lower down to start using the product? but say, hey, you know what, get me connected to your boss, and we'll tell them that you should adopt us, right? And everything essentially is on that curve, right? It gets a little bit more complex. What I was describing is called bottoms up selling, where you get the person who's going to use your product, right, and get them to convince the person who's their manager, and then who's the person who owns the budget. Or there could be top down selling, where you go and solve an exec's problem, where you go and tell an exec that, hey, you know what, you have this problem, and I happen to have this solution. It's a very simple framework of understanding this, and actually it's not that complicated. All organizations look at what they buy through there's a very simple funnel. At the very top are goals, which are given and negotiated usually by leadership. These goals lead to plans being made, right? People say, we'll do this. Somebody says, double revenue this year. Someone's going to have to make a plan, right? How are we going to double revenue this year? We're going to ABC, right? From these plans will emerge the capabilities that the organization is going to need, is going to have, doesn't have. And from the delta, that do we have enough capabilities, is there a gap, are going to emerge the solutions we need to meet those capabilities, right? Solutions deliver capabilities that basically help you meet plans, that help you achieve goals, right? Now, if you're going to go to a CEO and you're going to sell them a solution, they're not going to care. They're going to say, talk to this guy who does X, Y, Z, right? You're going to help meet the goal. So top down, and no matter what you do, whether you're selling bottoms up or top down, you are always navigating this ladder: goals, plans, capabilities, solution. The common mistake that you as a developer would make, Shobhit, is then you would talk to the CRO and you tell them that I will automate your billing, right? This might sound familiar, Shobhit. I don't
Yeah.
care what you want to automate, right? I only care about that you'll get a nice formatted report about which customers build what capacity as a usage-based planning. This is what's going to grow, right? Phenomenal.
Yep.
Is this interesting?
Yeah.
Yeah. Are you able to do it? I will look at my capability gap. I can fill this capability gap for you by selling this solution. I said, great. I'm not going to use it, but my VP keeps whining about this capability gap. So why don't you go talk to my VP and their team? And once you have that sponsor top down, right, then the VP and team are obviously going to have to take a look at it. They'll probably find alternatives. And then, rest of sales is about taking care of that, right? How do you deal with competition? How do you deal with objections? How do you make sure that these people are able to validate economically, functionally, and technically that your product can fit in? When you get to really advanced level and big enough contracts, you got to make another alignment, which is political alignment. So you got to be politically aligned in the organization. You got to be functionally aligned. You got to be technically aligned, and then you got to be economically aligned. You can be afforded. You can be used. You have the technical ability to deliver the function that you promised, right? And someone's going to benefit politically from acquiring you. At its highest form, sales sells promotions, not products. Remember that. Someone's got to say that, if I get this thing, if I help meet this goal, I'm going to get promoted. And that's phenomenal, right? Some companies are gotten really, really good at doing this, right? And that's how you sell. So as a developer, if you understand that's what you're doing, now you're not gonna be able to get a political alignment on day one, right? But you can get technical alignment, right? Which is where POCs come in, saying, hey, I can do what I say I can do, and that should create a capability surplus in your organization, which will then let you help you meet these plans that have been thrown at you, and then your boss will finally win. And then if your boss wins because of what you do, you win. Variations of that. Again, I'm oversimplifying this, right? But when people say how to sell, I'm like, it's not how. It's like, what is the job? What is the job? And the job is very, very simple. You go in and you listen, right? That's when you go and do discovery, right? So many frameworks. I like the simplest, the best, which is BANT, BANT, budget, authority, need, timeline. Do you have the money to buy me? Do you have the need to actually use this tool, right? Do you have the authority to make a decision on this, or does somebody else? Or do I know that person? And are you going to do this quick enough, right? And after that, you learn that framework, you do the discovery, which means you're doing a lot of listening, which means you're also doing a lot of asking. And once you do that, and once you have that information, then it's it's simple, right? Sales isn't hard. It's like swimming, bicycling, sex. You think you do it best, but everybody does it, trust me, right?
Okay.
It's a bit like that, right? I hope this is not a family show, because
Yeah, yeah, it's fine.
downhill from there. it's uh,
Uh,
it's not that much. It's not that much more complicated.
okay, but okay. So let's say we take that the first thing that you mentioned, which was bottoms up. Now let's say if we take example of Last9, which is sort of like people buy at a little mature stage, which is probably not like the person vibe coding their app for the first time, but maybe let's say they have 100 or 200 users are using it, maybe then it makes sense. If you want to have a bottoms up approach, do they directly go and sign up and then you sort of convince them to talk to get you to talk to their, let's say, senior leadership or something like that, or how does that work?
So by now we have a fairly mature, engine where we obviously have people. You can just show up and you sign up, right? And most people are probably fall in a free bucket. You're just starting out. You're going to sign up on Datadog. You're going to sign up on New Relic. Right? I do a few things that are better, right? You're probably going to get a bit more. You're going to take less effort and all of that, right? So we've done the differentiation. Our approach is slightly different. You can sign up. You can start using the tool. Right now, we're looking at your usage come in, right, and say, hey, you know what, this person is good enough. We can start sending them emails. At least in that funnel, you're gonna have retention. You're gonna have product qualification. Product qualification is, have they seen some moment of value? Have they seen a few dashboards? Have they received an alert and so on and so forth? Hey, this person has enough data. They've seen an alert getting fired. They reacted to the alert, so they've seen some value in the product. Now, have they hit the free tier, right? Or have they crossed the free tier? Have we have the capability and ability to cross the free tier? You'll try to warm them up with emails, but if you think that, hey, decent volume, they're probably going to cross the free tier in a month or two, we actually have a person who says, hey, all the PQLs, the product qualified leads, come to me. I'm going to just email them, dial them, hey, dial out to them. More often than not, at that stage, it's probably going to be the founder themselves using it. Those, by the way, are your investments in the future. So I call them the FD of sales, right? Fixed deposits. You'll be surprised how many customers, and not just here, even at CleverTap, you'll be surprised how many customers we started off at $250, $100 a month, right? And got them all the way up to millions of dollars. There are some listed companies out there who did their first, push notifications using CleverTap for free, and then scaled all the way where they ended up paying millions of dollars, right? And I'm not even kidding you with
And in the AI age, you go from 1 to 50 in like 3 months. So that's happening even faster. So your
yeah, I
capability
still,
to spend is.
for what it's worth, I'm still to see that. But yes, hypothetically that can happen. But the point is, look, we got that part covered. But then there's a different part, right? A lot of people are not going to be able to send data without a contract, NDA. This is very important data. So they're going to reach out and say, I want to schedule a demo. Phenomenal. Inbound leads, great. Now, to generate inbound, you need to do branding and brand marketing. And brand marketing is about, what do you stand for, right? Last9's preferred style of brand marketing is, we do a lot of content, we talk at a lot of these events, and more importantly, we build amazing T-shirts. We give out thousands and thousands of T-shirts every year. We want people to remember us, that we are the cool unified observability brand, right? And we design these T-shirts ourselves. They are phenomenal. If you can get it, we actually run a shop on Last9 where you can just go in and purchase one of our T-shirts. You'd be surprised. We could actually, if nothing else, we could be a great DTC brand as well.
I don't think I worked for a company that pivoted their main product to
Yeah,
selling
not gonna
sweatshirts
happen.
on
Not gonna happen.
on Twitter.
Just
So
I'm just simply saying that our
yeah,
T-shirts,
yeah.
right? So you have that, and then that's still not enough, right? Because that you're still waiting, opening a shop at Sarojini Market and wanting for people to come by, right? At some point in time, you're going to advance to contact, right? And that's where sales really begins. Where now you're going to go out to events, right? And that's where as a CRO, my goal is that, look, we're not going to wait for customers to come to us. We're going to go to them. We're going to go to events. We're not going to do Zoom calls. We're going to try and meet people in person, right? And that, by the way, is phenomenal. I tell people that Zoom subscription is not going to solve your company's problem, and you gotta buy a lot of airline tickets, and that works. It works magically well, right? If your competition is doing a Zoom call and you showed up to their office, trust me, you're already in the door, right? You're literally in the door, and meet more people,
Yeah.
and meetings will become a little more open-ended, and people crave a contact. They crave, it's very hard to tell somebody's smart on a Zoom call, right? Trust me, I'm much better, much smarter in person, right? So we do that. Go to events. We go to industry events. We buy tickets. Right? A lot of people tell you don't go to conferences and so on and so forth. Those people are basically depressed content creators, right? They don't like contact. Anybody who tells you that if you can build a business while avoiding business contact, sure, but no, right? If you go to the Bay Area, right? I mean, the people, what's happening at Bay Area? Everyone's meeting everyone all the time. All the cafes are bloody full, and the only reason to be in the Bay Area is because you can just walk into your idols and amazing people will just give you time. That's the thing, right? So then, of course, you're gonna have outbound sales where you're gonna just cold call people. But if you haven't done your brand marketing, if they don't know of your brand, they're gonna get really pissed, right? So cold calling and emailing. But the one thing that rarely works is just especially for a product like ours, it's just randomly emailing and stuffing their inboxes. Inboxes are dead. People are, I mean, when the last time you actually looked at an email and you bought something from an email, right? That should just, that just doesn't work anymore. Unless you have a great brand where, you have a reason to look at that email. Most emails is gonna fall through. The highest form of selling is when you have, when you've been selling for a couple of decades and you just pick up the call and talk to the guy that, hey, you know what? I know you have that problem. I'm going to show up, and you get invited in, right? And that's how the $1 million deals happen, by the way. Where you walk in because you already know the organization, you got the map, you know what the board has given the CMO, and you know what the CMO's initiatives she's running, and you go figure those initiatives out, and then you want to say, here, let me work with your team, let me do a POC, and so on and so forth. Now, in all of this, how you make some choices and what you do are style choices, right? Some people want to sell in the US. Some want to sell in India, right? Uh, all of that, those are just style choices. Now, I'm not saying you don't sell in the US. You know, uh, I'll be right until I'm wrong, right? Some kid's gonna go out and sell in the US and do $100 million sitting in Bangalore. Right? Hasn't happened yet, but I'm not saying it won't happen, right? You know how Paras did a 50 million, $60 million ARR business sitting out of Bangalore, right? It only took him 16
Yeah.
years. Phenomenal. But
Telling.
he was disciplined enough, by the way, not to take bullshit money from pseudo bankers who had never stepped out of Indiranagar, right?
Yeah.
VC.
But it's a Delhi company, not Bangalore
Delhi,
company.
Bangalore, same difference.
Yeah. No, no. Very, very big difference.
Trust me, my
That is not a style
I've been
choice.
to
That
yeah,
is
I've been to Indiranagar HSR. It's starting to look more, and they all starting to look the same to me. The weather's a little better in Bangalore, but the point I'm making is that look, he did this right, sitting out of India.
yeah,
But you run out of examples very, very quickly. But I'm saying, look,
yeah,
these are style choices. I, as a person, am making the choices based on how I see the world. I don't think I'm very old, but I'm old enough to have my intelligence to have crystallized where think and see in terms of patterns, right? And those patterns are like, am I going to be the first one through the breach? Well, you know what? Like it or not, it needs a slightly younger person to be the first one through the breach, right? One of my favorite lines from Moneyball is the first guy through the breach gets bloody. Right? In the end, when he gets that big check, and he's the hiring manager is telling him that the first guy
yeah,
you've shown us the way. Yes,
yeah,
right. But it's very difficult once you've taken money because you're running on a clock, right? People are expensive and so on and so forth. Most times you're not in control. So a lot of these choices you make about, hey, we're going to have sales reps or not. We're going to do PLG. We're going to do all of this, right? But the ultimate goal remains the same. I still think software is an amazing business. I still think a lot of great software businesses are yet to be done, yet to be made. I think AI changes a lot of things. I'm also surprised how many things don't yet change, right? Or are not going to change because, goals, plans, capabilities, action. That's not going to change. Organizations are going to remain execution engines. Now, I know people say that we're going to have one people company, but even then, you're still going to think about what you need and why you need in the same ways. To me, as a CRO, right, my job today is to make those style choices, right? So, in a way, you could say that I'm vibe coding my way into a selling organization, right? Where I'm making style choices, taste. Am I going to do this or going to do that? Why am I going to do this, and so on and so forth, right? But I have a phenomenal team around me that takes those choices, pushes back where they think I'm being an old man shouting at their internet, right? But with that level of correction and error correction, right, I think we're able to do a reasonably good job.
You also mentioned right now, just like that is how you do the $1 million deals. Like, I think big question that was also a problem with me when I tried selling you, for example, usage based billing was um, how do you price things?
Pricing is simple, right? What you can okay. Uh, I know it's very debatable, but you start first by pricing, deciding that what is the margin that you think the market will bear. Cost me $1, I'm going to charge 5. That's an 80% GM business, and you go try, right? And everybody's going to say no. It's very important that you don't take that personally. That's a 90% drop off. Is somebody goes and sells something to somebody in India, right? Their privileged Gen Z ass can't take somebody asking for a discount. So they're saying, India's shit and everything is shit. And this guy asked me for a discount. How dare he? Right? Dude, it's just how we do things. You're charging somebody 5x of what it cost you, right? That person knows. They've been buying shit, right? The person with the money, right, controls the conversation, right? Unless your value proposition is so defining, right, that they can't help but saying, take my money more often than not. But it's all right. You can the ways of doing this, and I actually recommend that you read Never Split the Difference. That has all the techniques necessary in it, required on it. Saying, don't take it personally. They're just stating a preference, but they didn't say no. Somebody told you to fuck the right off, right? You take the first. So I have this rule, right? You're gonna have to have three yeses. Consent is three yeses, right? The first yes is always fake. The second yes is confirmation. The third is commitment. But every first no is final. Somebody said no, back off, figure out why. Because all no's come from fear, uncertainty, or doubt. What did you create? Did you create all of them? Or you were just talking to the wrong person, right? You're trying to sell a Lala company software, right? Maybe you probably should not try and sell to the Lala directly, right? Go talk to the IT department or figure out who has the problem and sell the problem, right? Again, I could go on for days about this, but the point I'm going to make and leave you with is uh, advance to contact, right? Make your choices, right? How do you price is very simple. Pick a margin, tune it according to what the market will bear, right? If the market's only going to pay you $4 for the $1 product for what it costs you $1, right? Your job is to go back and get another multiple out because the market's going to pay you four, and you still want to build ideally an 80% GM business in software because by the time all the costs get loaded on, you're not going to make as much money, right? Trust me. Gross is great, but net is where your life will matter. So you go in and then you try and figure some of these choices out, and eventually once you've sold enough and you've got enough leverage, you'll be able to go from a cost plus margin model to willingness to pay, because what you're discovering is what are they willing to pay, and then you go fix your cost or you're going to fix your margins, right? If somebody says that they easily agree to $5, then your job in the next call is the next meeting is to charge six, and then seven, and then eight, right? And now what you've done is you earned the right to spend a little bit more, or actually have a net margin. But ultimately you'll figure out that it doesn't really matter what you ask for. People are still reasonably willing to pay, and then eventually your price becomes what you're willing to set. So the way you do pricing is you iterate rapidly and you charge different ways. Right now I know some people are going to be like, oh, that's absurd, you're charging $5 for what costs $1 to make. But that's the truth, because that's how the world works.
Yeah.
Because I'm going to pay people in that $4 that I have. I got to pay the rent, I got to pay people, and somehow generate enough value and enough growth that people who invested in a company or bought my bullshit equity that isn't worth much, right? Some guy says, I'm going to build the world's next big CRM, and some VC goes and gives them $2 million, right? That VC's got to see a return, right? Sure, they're betting that one out of
Yeah.
100 people will not make, or will only make it, right? But you still got to do all that within that $4. So it's your goal to either get six or seven or eight in margin, or make sure it doesn't cost $1 anymore, right? And most of your SaaS and software journey is going to be composed of that, either lowering costs or being able to charge more money. But eventually, if within 2 to 3 years you're not able to transition to a model where you can charge people and you can have a pricing plan can that can price for the outcome that you deliver, which is the willingness to pay model of sorts, right? And if I made it easier for your people to run their processes or do X or do Y, you'll pay me this many dollars, and you're no longer benchmarking that to what it costs you to produce. Now there you have then you have succeeded at pricing, but you're going to be changing your pricing a lot. And remember, people are going to be very brutal about this, right? No one's going to agree to your pricing immediately, which is why your value proposition has to be so resonant that they have to, which is where so then that's where another selling comes in, where you got to be articulate, you got to solve the problem, right? And that's where having simple framework like goals, plans, capabilities, solution helps. In your case, Shobhit, you were selling me a billing engine which I didn't give a damn about because only my accountant did. My problem was, I can do two things. I can put my foot on that guy's neck and he produces a report, or I could depend on you to generate that report for me. Or, my point is, either way, I got my job done, right? I was not the one suffering. Somebody else was.
Yep.
However, my problem was I had to be the asshole in the room shouting at somebody to generate the report on time. So it's just solved that,
Yeah.
I'll make sure that there is a report available every 29th of the month, right, for the billing. And then, you can finalize. You can just simply say yes, no, make your tweaks before finally was to get generated. So solve the problem that I have, right? And so on and so forth. Again, I could tease that apart in many ways, but that's basically it, right? You price for the value you deliver eventually, but initially you begin with what margin you can charge.
Yeah. Anmol. So Anmol had a
Yeah,
question. He just said,
I was like, let's segue into something that. So I mean, like Bangalore engineers definitely need a lot of help with sales. The other thing they need a lot of help with is dressing. So what, like, tell us more about everything you've been on Twitter with tweeting about clothes and dressing, and because back in the clubhouse days, I don't think I ever saw you talk this much about
Yeah.
this hobby of yours or this
Yeah.
passion of yours.
So for context, people have started referring Kuldeep as, oh, the dye work wear guy of India.
Well, I wish they would refer me as bhai workwear, but that's all right. That's a joke that Anand makes
Uh,
now. But yeah, look, how we present ourselves. If was one tip I could give all Bangalore people, right, especially boys.
So one advice I would love to give all Bangalore people: do not fucking leave your house wearing chappals.
Oh yeah,
Please wear closed foot
which
shoes.
was worse, by the way, right? Is to wake up every morning and fucking shave.
Yeah,
If you the job is to work with people, shave or
yeah,
at least trim your fucking beard. No reference to you, Anmol. I don't think you should be working with people, anyways. But
take it.
look at Shobhit, right? Wakes up, shaves, shows up clean, right? And that tells you that I spent some time putting myself together, right, just so that I can be in your presence without offending. Now I know it's like, oh wow, why should I change? And I know there's a whole thing about, you got to be yourself and all of that, and the therapy industrial complex will tell you that you are important and all of that. But look, when you present yourself to people, right, make sure you don't smell offensive. Make sure you look like you took some care. I'm not saying don't have facial hair. I'm saying that take some care to make sure that it looks like you took some time, some care, right? And by the way, that applies doubly to clothing. Now clothing is culture. How you wear some things matters, right? Shobit's getting to the other side of 30, right, and still wears printed shirts, right? And that's great if all he does is hang around at one of those expensive cafes all day, working with people half his age. That's fine. They think it's so cool, uncle, right? But at some point of time, you're gonna have to move into solids and be put together. And he yesterday mentioned about how he wants to wear a necklace, right? But if he's gonna wear a heart necklace, which men used to wear out in '70s, so they can carry roofies around with them.
Wait, is that not an AI pendant?
Well, who knows, right? It feels like one of those things that men used to carry those little bad date rape drugs in, right?
Oh, I thought the Coke spoon. You're muted.
Yeah, I'm just simply saying, right,
You're
that
muted. Yeah,
thing in '70s and '80s are weird, right? But you can't, like,
yeah.
all human societies and all human systems are mimetic, right? We copy and replicate each other, right? So if you're going to be in a room where you're going to be competing for status, and status matters, right? If you're calm, collected, quiet, smart, better spoken, better dressed, better put together, and then somebody who might potentially compete with, right, you're giving them an advantage. Why would you do that, right? And you're right, if you're walking around in chappals, which is fine, but you're telling them that I'm here and I'm chilling. So either you already have power. So that works great if Mark Zuckerberg walks in, or that Endurial founder Palmer Lucky walks in wearing Hawaii shirts. That is him basically flipping a bird to everyone, saying, I literally can kill people because I have a company that specializes in making weapons, right? I don't need to listen to you, right? But most of us don't have that ability, right? So yes, you could say that a better dressed person is showing that they have less power, but I think it also shows that I'm willing to be the quiet one. I'm willing to be not the person who smells. I'm willing to be not I'm willing to be a person who's happy to abide by some common convention. And by the way, that gives you some status, right? So if you're going to meet someone's office, it's only right that you comb your hair, brush your teeth, wash your face, and dress appropriately. Now there is another problem. Now menswear is really literally about power. Everything that we wear, we didn't invent, right? We're Indians, right? Our cultural clothing and our weather, right? We wear shit that is not designed for our weather, right? Uh, Today, a typical software engineer has to navigate thermal transitions, right? You're going to go into an AC room, then you're going to go be sitting in an auto rickshaw, and the Bangalore morning is a far more, far colder than the Bangalore afternoon in traffic, right? So we gotta adapt to these clothes, but you can't go back to wearing kurta pajama anymore. That resonance, like you meet these unshaved engineering techies from Chennai running big companies saying, I'm going to wear a dhoti. I'm like, sir, you can, but you're basically saying that I'm different. And unless you are already running a billion-dollar company and you're willing to be a total ass and you're trying to be a edgelord, great. But most people are going to want to blend in. And look, you want to wear a vesti, fine, do it, right? Just one, don't shove it in my face every few minutes, saying, hey, look, I'm wearing a vesti, I'm more Indian than you are. I'm like, screw you, man, right? That's you being an asshole. The second thing is, if you're gonna wear something, begin by benchmarking yourself to the convention that those things come with, right? So you're gonna wear a shirt and a tie and go and wear a chappal, right? It's gonna look weird. But it's also important to understand why it's gonna look weird, right? Because there's a formality convention, right? Because those things were not designed to go together, because those things have a history. So if you're gonna wear a polo shirt, right? By the way, which is a garment which was almost, it came out of India, right? It was a dress of the royals, right? As they used to play polo and protect themselves against the sun and whatnot. Uh, it's probably not a bad idea to get to know the things you wear and be a little bit interested, saying, hey, how can I look not so offensive, how can I blend in, right? And I think the one big tragedy of our times is we don't spend enough time taking care of ourselves, and we don't spend enough time, but women have this more naturally, right? Because they didn't have to adapt to the people in power, right? All men have always had to dress themselves up the way the people in power do, right? That's
Yeah.
where sherwanis come from. That's where, shirts and pants and formal wear, right, comes from. You're gonna go into office, you're gonna wear a shirt and a pant, right? In the 80s, you probably wore a tie in Bombay, right? Can you imagine wearing a tie in Bombay heat in May? But people did, right? Because that's how. So we adapt, right?
Everyone.
Clothing is
Yeah.
culture. Clothing moves with it. It's my big deep belief, right? That again, which is, I get very irritated when people say fashion advice. Guys, I'm a guy from Jhajjar. What do I know about fashion? Trust me, no one's letting me in to a fashion show in Paris, right? I know nothing. All I know is that, hey, you know what? If you're wearing a shirt, and if you're wearing an Oxford cotton button-down shirt, which has, that the little collar that has a little buttons here, right? Which is classical American wear. I want to make sure that it's made of cotton and it's made in Oxford weave. And, then I want to make sure that, I don't wear a shorts below it. That I wear
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
just a,
I was gonna say
yeah,
that.
yeah, just make sure that it goes well, that it doesn't
Yeah.
disrespect the heritage of a garment, right? And look, if I want to wear a dhoti, I'll wear a dhoti, man. It's all right. It's very comfortable. It's perfectly designed for this weather, right? But look, if I'm gonna go to meet a CTO of a company and I show up in a dhoti, right? Either I'm making a bloody statement, or I'm a foreigner who's trying to tell, who's trying to, like, one of those cultural appropriation things. Like, it's embarrassing when those people do that. I'm like, that was that long time ago that Canadian Prime Minister showed up and he was like, all fancy dress. The difference in fancy dress and being blending in, like, saying, okay, what, stand
Yeah.
out, be distinctive, wear a
Yeah.
watch, wear a nice pendant, all right? Try and make sure that the history of the pendant doesn't make you look like a date rapist, right? Make sure you don't, wear it in a color that, it focuses. There's so many ways things. It's not hard to not stand out, right? Just, just, as long as you're willing to show that you took time and attention, putting yourself together when you stepped out, right? Today morning, right? You took some time. That's all,
Yeah.
and that's all I'm advocating for, right? I don't like
Yeah.
it when my sales reps walk up to a customer's office and they're not shaved, and I'm like, we're showing them disrespect, and they're gonna judge everything on that. And I learned it by saying, if I don't show up my morning call shaved, they're gonna not gonna show up shaved, and
All Last 9 sales employees aren't allowed to keep a beard.
they are, as long as they keep it trimmed
Okay. Okay.
and clean.
Okay.
Right. So that's
But
all I have to say about that. And by the way, the most fascinating thing about clothing in India is we actually own the clothing stack in this country. We can
Yeah.
any kind
Yeah.
of clothing, right? I'm wearing this T-shirt, right? It's made up of 100% merino wool, right? But it was made in India, right? And it's great. The weather is nice in Bombay. People are saying, "Can you wear wool?" Hey, you can. It actually can keep you cool, right? And once you learn about that, you don't have to become obsessed with it. You can just simply say, "Hey, you know what? Yesterday I think chatting with Sajit on Twitter, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
He was wearing this T-shirt from this brand called Reply All, and it was a great T-shirt. Except I noticed a little detail that they had the
The,
logo,
the the logo.
and
Yeah.
I'm like, someone like Sajid, right, who's obviously a
Yeah.
cerebral, is a partner at actually one of more successful VC firms in the country. He doesn't need to put a logo on his chest. He doesn't have to show what T-shirt he's wearing, right?
Yeah.
He's
But also, I
not.
mean, I my bigger question there is like that that logo stands for a brand that no one knows or cares for yet. Like, I mean, if you're wearing a polo, you're wearing a Ralph Lauren, you know the
But Anmol,
Ralph
that'll
Lauren
change.
logo.
There was a time when nobody knew Ralph Lauren, right? Ralph's one of those great, I
I,
say, Steve Jobs of clothing. I would want to say you should watch this documentary, by the way, Being Ralph. Ralph Lauren's amazing. That's all right. That
yeah,
can
yeah,
change. The problem is not with the logo. The problem is that on someone like Sajid, right, that logo
yeah,
doesn't, like it, it's saying, it's like, what is he trying to say, right?
yeah,
And I
yeah.
actually, as a matter of fact, I would not, Sajid should even wear a Ralph Lauren, right? Someone like Sajid should probably be wearing bespoke clothing, because he doesn't have to. He doesn't. He is not about the
I
clothes he's wearing.
think,
He's about the person
yeah,
within
yeah,
those clothes, right? They have to fit.
yeah, yeah.
Clothes have to fit the person. The person doesn't have to fit the clothes. So when you wear a logo, it's almost like, that that joke is a real estate broker from not Delhi, right?
West Delhi, West Delhi.
Yeah, 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 you're West
Gucci,
Delhi, right?
Gucci,
Wearing a full
Gucci.
Armani label, right? Yeah, the Armani
Yeah,
is
no,
bigger
no,
than the sleeve,
Gucci,
right?
Gucci. The Gucci belt, the
Yeah,
loafers.
quiet money is quiet fashion. That's what it's all about. Quiet luxury is about that, right? You go in, my clothes fit me. They were made for me, and that's enough, right? I didn't fit these clothes. These clothes fit me. Straightforward, very simple. Be groomed. Don't smell bad. Very important, by the way. I mean, I know you can't smell me through here, but I actually.
Hey, 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 we can't talk about that. We're gonna get cancelled on Twitter.
All right. I could go on for hours, but I think at some point.
But how did you get into, like, I remember like 2021 you did not talk about this at all. Like, what changed?
Yeah, well,
I think he started traveling to Bangalore a lot more. He's like, I'm fed up by people not
I've been
putting.
traveling to Bangalore since 2011, but no, I think
I know, I know, I know.
I don't think pace of life or whatever, right? Everybody would say that every time somebody asks me a question about this T-shirt, I've always look at the T-shirts you're wearing. I'll look at I know a lot about uh, because of experience, professional and personal. Know about fabrics, about clothing, where it comes from. Deeply interested in it. I just started talking about it, and people said, "Hey, that resonates." And the nature of social media is, since you talk about something, people like it. It's fun. It's fun. Somebody says that, "Hey, what should I?" Somebody asks me, "What should I be wearing with this?" And I'm like, I'm happy to tell you, but remember, every choice you make is valid for yourself, right? I'm not gonna be. And by the way, I'm a big fan of dye workwear. I think big inspiration, right? You only started tweeting like 2 years ago, 3 years ago, right? And
Yeah,
what
yeah.
a resonant cultural force. And it's amazing to watch him talk about, like, hey, this is where suits come from, and I buy suits now and I buy t-shirts now, and it's just interesting. So you buy clothes, and then you meet people. Like, for example, a lot of people DM me their fit saying, "Kuldeep, is this good enough? I'm going for a important meeting." And it's nice to when people feel confident enough. Like, I think as you young people call it fit checks now, but it's nice, right? People are taking the photograph saying, "Hey, does this go well together?" I'm like, "Hey, you know what? You could try A, B, C, D." And then they try something and they say, thanks to you, I was able to feel confident about myself. Like, just a shirt and a pant you're gonna wear is not gonna get you win a meeting. But if people feel good and confident about themselves, right? Your clothes and sexy confidence, right? So you walk in with that confidence because you feel like you're dressed like the best, right? And if you want to see what that does, you should watch how Japanese and Korean young men dress, right? They have these whole codes and beautiful, right? I mean, especially Korean men, they have these phenomenal frames, right? Like, they have these stylings called tone on tone, tone in tone. How to wear a necklace, learn from Korean men, because it should create a focus. How to wear color, it's amazing, right? And it doesn't take that much. It just and it's no longer, no one's gonna bully you because you dress.
You dress, yeah,
I mean, at
yeah.
least not on Twitter anymore.
No, I don't think anyone's gonna bully you for. I think like it's like putting effort is cool again. So I think people appreciate it.
All right. Thank you so much,
Of course.
Kuldeep, for coming on. Where do people follow you? I think most of
Well,
them
I'm on
anyway will
I'm
be,
on
but
Twitter. I'm fairly visible, right? So you'll
yeah,
come find
you
You
are.
must have seen already, Kuldeep.
Yeah,
Kuldeep.
well, find me on
yeah.
Twitter, and that's where I am. And if you have questions about anything, just ask me. I like being challenged. So there is that.
All right. Thank you so much, Kuldeep, for coming on.
Of course.
And I hope you get some followers from this. और तो पता नहीं
Don't
क्या
care about
मिलेगा.
followers, man. I just enjoy being. Cheers. Thank you, Shobhit.
Cha.